In this video, I will review the major concepts that you will need to know for your Unit 1 exam. For the Unit 1 exam, you will need to study the first 5 sections of your textbook for this course. The very first section of the textbook is entitled Essential Computer Concepts. If you look on page ECC2 and ECC3, you will see a visual overview that will give you some information that will be found in questions on your exam. For example, on page ECC2, it talks about the monitor and the keyboard. The monitor is an output device. The keyboard is an input device. The mouse also is an input device. And of course, the printer is an output device. On page ECC3, it talks about specifications. Specifications are the technical details about your computer system or about a particular component of your computer. The processor is responsible for executing instructions to process data, and RAM is memory. It temporarily holds programs and data while the computer is on. And then it gives some information on page ECC3 also about the operating system and what it does. So again, in this video, I'm going to be covering those specific areas in your textbook that you need to study for the Unit 1 exam. So those are the areas on those pages that you need to study. On page 4, it talks about, well, on page 4, 5, and 6, it talks about different types of computers. And in this course, what we're dealing with is microcomputers. Microcomputers are PCs. PCs are single user systems, and PCs are computers. They're used with the Windows operating system. There are various types of PCs or microcomputers, including your tower and desktop, notebooks, and laptops, and tablets, and even PDAs, personal data assistants. Your cell phone even is considered a microcomputer. On page ECC6, it talks about computer system and specifically talks about hardware and software. Hardware and software work together. Really, hardware is of no value without software, and software is of no value without hardware, and so they work together. The hardware are the physical components of your system, the things that you can see and touch and feel. The software are the intangible components of your computer system, and that would be electronic instructions in the form of programs. At the bottom of page ECC6 has the term configuration. Configuration is really referring to the design of your computer. It's everything that your computer is designed to do. It's the architecture of your computer. On page ECC7, it talks about data representation. Now, this goes into some detail, but really the things that you need to know for exam purposes are these. Data is stored on your computer in bytes. Bytes are made up of bits. Bits is a short term for binary digits. Binary digits or bits are electronic switches that are either on or off inside your computer. If they're off, they're represented by a 0. If they're on, they're represented by a 1. And if you string 8 bits together, that forms a byte. Then at the bottom of page 7, it tells where the values of bytes are stored, and you do need to know this. It's the American Standard Code for Information Interchange, and it's sort of like a table or a residing area that computers are able to access to get the value of bytes and then to recognize those values as characters on your keyboard. Well, on page ECC8, it talks about the processing hardware, and especially talks about the motherboard. The motherboard is a large electronic circuit board inside the computer. On the motherboard reside many components. The most important component is the processor. Sometimes it's referred to as the CPU. Sometimes, well, CPU stands for Central Processing Unit. Sometimes it's simply referred to as processor, sometimes microprocessor, and then sometimes it's simply referred to as the chip. On page ECC 9, processors have speeds. The speed of processors is measured in hertz, or some variation of hertz, like kilohertz, megahertz, gigahertz. At the bottom of page ECC 9, it talks about memory and storage. The two major types of memory that we talk about in this course are RAM and ROM. RAM is temporary memory. It's also volatile. It is only available on your computer while your computer is powered on. Once your computer is powered off, RAM goes away. When you begin a document on your computer and are typing into it, it's going into RAM. Now, until you save that onto a permanent media like the hard drive or a flash drive or DVD, it's temporary and volatile. And should the power go off, then you are subject to losing that data if it's in RAM. So you should periodically save your data to permanent media. Now, the other type of memory that's talked about is ROM. ROM is permanent and non-volatile. ROM, the main ROM that's talked about in this course is ROM BIOS, B-I-O-S, and that stands for Binary Operating System. I'm sorry. The other type of memory that's mentioned is ROM. ROM is permanent and non-volatile. The primary ROM that's mentioned in this course is ROM BIOS, B-I-O-S, Basic Input Output System, and that is the memory that is permanently etched onto the chip that has the instructions that tell the computer what to do when you turn the power button on. And so it's the instructions that the computer goes through in the boot process. Another type of memory that's mentioned is CMOS. That's on page ECC 11, and that's the type of memory that keeps up with the devices that you add or delete from your computer system. Storage media is also mentioned on ECC 11, and the term file. Computer file is a named collection of stored data. And there are two major types of files, executable files and data files. Executable files tell the computer what to do, basically, such as the operating system and other utility software. And then you have data files. Data files are those files that you as a user create using executable files, such as Word and PowerPoint and things like that. Other storage media are referred to on page ECC 12 and 13 and 14. And that would be that would take the form of tape media, magnetic media, or optical storage such as CDs and DVDs. And then on page ECC 14, it even talks about solid state memory or storage in the form of flash drives or media cards. On page ECC 15, it talks about input and output. The two most common input devices are the keyboard and the mouse. The two most common output devices are the printer and the monitor. The monitor is made up of little dots that we refer to as pixels, and the more little pixels that your monitor can display, the clearer the picture, and the maximum number of pixels the monitor can display is known as its resolution. Printers come in different forms as well. You have inkjet printers and bubble jet printers and laser printers and dot matrix printers. The main printer that used by business is the laser printer. It's measured in pages per minute, uses toner, and there's a heat transfer of the information to the page. One other thing I forgot to mention about monitors is that monitors are measured from one diagonal to the other. So if you have a 14-inch monitor, it's 14 inches from one corner to the other corner diagonally across the monitor. Well, all of this is found on those pages, ECC 15, 16, 17, 18, and then we get to ECC 19. You do need to know about data communications for the exam, so I'll let you read that. But you do need to know that it has 4 components: a sender, receiver, channel, and protocols. You need to know the definition of protocols. You also need to know that last sentence in that section, data communication. The transmission protocol is handled by a device driver or driver, which is a computer program that can establish communication because it contains information about the characteristics of your computer and of the device. Now, that communication occurs on the motherboard in what we call traces. These are little lines on the motherboard. Sometimes those little traces are referred to as buses, and collectively that data communication is referred to as the data bus. Now, that communication often occurs between cards. Cards are removable, usually removable cards that are placed in slots inside your computer, and they contain ports that external devices can plug into, such as your printer, scanner, keyboard, and things like that. There is also a USB or Universal Serial Bus port, which is becoming more popular, and it's sort of a standard interface to your computer. On page ECC 21, it talks about networks, and you need to know that networks just simply connect multiple computers together, allow for sharing of data. The internet, by the way, is considered the largest network in the world. In order to be on a network, you need a special card. That special card is called a NIC card, NIC. Stands for Network Interface Card. And it provides the ability to have access to the network. There are two types of networks that are mentioned on page ECC 21. You have your peer-to-peer network and your client-server network. Peer-to-peer simply means that all of the computers on the network are of equal importance. They can all share information, but none are more important than another. The client-server network is different. One of the computers is more important than the others. It contains the programs and the data files that the other computers need. So it becomes known as a server. The other computers become known as clients, and that's known as a client-server network. We also have terms like LAN and WAN, LAN and WAN. LAN, local area network. WAN, wide area network. LANs are networks that are in small geographic areas, such as a computer lab. WANs are when you connect two or more LANs together. Then we would refer to that as a WAN. And once again, the internet would be considered a WAN, wide area network. Now, if you back to your networks one more time, when you are connected to the network, it's known, that device is known as a node, or sometimes referred to as a workstation. And then if you're not connected to the network, you are referred to as a standalone computer. Well, on page ECC 22, it talks about telecommunications. Telecommunications is simply communicating over a long distance using a telephone line. You go from one PC to another over a telephone line, and the problem there is that the signals on the PCs on either side are digital in nature. The signals on the telephone line are analog, so you need something that can convert the digital signals from or the signals on the computers from digital to analog long enough to get them across the telephone line and then change back to digital on the other side. And that's something that does that is called a modem. And that's found on page ECC 22. On page ECC 23, it talks about security. And the thing that you need to know most is on page ECC 24, where it talks about spyware. Also, you need to know the term firewall, the term spoofed site, phishing, and farming on page ECC 25. On page ECC 26, it talks about two major types of software, and that would be system software and application software. System software would be things like your operating system and other utilities. Application software would be things like Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Word, Excel, things like that. Also on page ECC 26, you have the term system resources. You need to know that, as well as the term multitasking. And at the very bottom of page 26, you need to know the term GUI, GUI, or graphical user interface, which is the environment that we are in the point and click status of using the desktop and that sort of thing. Okay, well, on page ECC 32, it talks about cloud computing, a relatively new technology, I guess, or at least relatively new in its massive use, and that is that programs and data reside on servers on the internet or on some server outside of your environment. And so the data and the programs don't actually reside on your computer. Well, the next section in your textbook is called Windows. On page on pages WIN 2 and 3, it gives you a visual overview of your Windows desktop. And the things that you would need to know would be about the recycle bin, the taskbar at the bottom, the little icons on your desktop, and then on ECC, well, let's see, on page ECC 5, it talks about when you start your computer up, it uses default settings, so you need to know that. You also need to know that the most common pointing device is your mouse. That's found at the bottom of page WIN 5. On page 6, it talks about a screen tip. So when you hover your mouse pointer over an object, it will give you a screen tip of what the functionality is for that particular object. Also talks about clicking. In order to select an item or to open an item, oftentimes you need to click or double click, or sometimes you will be instructed to right click on an object. When you right click on an object, it brings up a shortcut menu or a list of options or items that are available for that object. It also talks about folders as a place to organize your files. On page WIN 9, it talks about the start menu, and the next several pages give you some visual views of the start menu. Again, on page WIN 12, it talks about multitasking, running multiple programs at the same time. On page WIN 13, it talks about keyboard shortcut. This will be a combination of keys that you might press to perform a particular function. And on page WIN 17, it talks about the manipulation of windows in your on your screen. For example, on this screen that you're looking at now as I'm speaking, up at the top right, there are 3 buttons. These are sizing buttons or control buttons. The first one, a little hyphen, would minimize this window down to the taskbar. Doesn't delete it, it just puts it down on the taskbar. The middle control button has 2 names. If the page is maximized like it is now, it's known as the restore down button. If you click on that, it restores the window down to a smaller size. And then that button becomes known as the maximize button. If you click it, then it will maximize the screen. And then, of course, the X will close the window. On page WIN 19, it talks about list boxes, and these are arrows that you can click and bring down a list of options that you can use. On page WIN 22 and 23, it gives you a visual overview of the computer window, and you might want to review that as well. If you turn over to page, let's see, actually the next section is managing your files, and on page FM2 and FM3 it gives you a visual overview, and you might want to review some of the items there. On FM4, it talks about the computer system itself is a hierarchy. It can be thought of as sort of an upside down tree. Normally the root of a tree is at the bottom, but in computer terms the root is at the top. It's the highest level, and then below the root you have your folders, which are represented by the branches, and you have your files, which are represented by the leaves. Once again, it talks about folders and subfolders. Folders are places you can organize your files and folders, and then subfolders are folders within folders. Okay, well, if you turn over to page FM9, it talks about the parts of your the path that you get to your files, and you can see there a drive with a certain path, and then a file name, map.png. And the next several pages talk about managing files and folders, and so you might want to just review some of that information. On page FM 15 and 16, it talks about the name of your file itself. It has three parts. It has the main part of the file name, followed by a period, and then followed by an extension. And the extension will tell you, typically tell you what application created that file. On page FM 17, it talks about deleting files and folders. And if you delete a file on your hard drive, it goes into a temporary storage area called the recycle bin. And if you delete it by accident or later decided you want it back, you can recover that. However, there is a tip in the left-hand margin on page FM 17 that indicates that if you delete a file from a removable device, such as a flash drive, then it does not go into the recycle bin, and that cannot be recovered. The next section is on browser and email basics, and on page BEB 2 and 3, it gives you a visual overview of that. And all of those terms are very important, and terms that you will find on the Unit 1 exam, such as web browser, favorites center, the web page, the home page, search engines, hyperlinks or linking. On page BEB 4 and 5, it continues to talk about the internet, the World Wide Web, and websites. On page BEB 5, it talks about two ways that computers are uniquely identified on the internet. One is through the IP address, so you need to read about that, and also through the domain name. Each of those are unique ways to identify files on the internet. Then looking over on page BEB 16, it talks about email. So you might want to review that section. There'll be a question or two on your exam about email and the structure of an email account. And then finally, we get to the last section, or the fifth section in these first 5 sections of the textbook, and that's Office. On OFF 2 and 3, it gives you a visual overview of Office. On page OFF 4, you need to know basically the definition of these terms that you find on OFF 4, the definition of Office, Word, Excel, Access, and PowerPoint, and you need to know the type of files that are created by each. For example, Word creates documents, Excel creates spreadsheets, Access creates databases, PowerPoint creates presentations. The term integration is found on page OFF 5, so you need to know about that. And also at the bottom of page OFF 7, it talks about the easiest way to switch between programs is to click on the taskbar. And then I believe if you go all the way over to page OFF 19, about the third paragraph down from the top, it says the first time you save a file, you need to name it, and this name should be meaningful. If you look a little further down in that section, it gives you the extensions for the files we'll be using in this course. Word has an extension of DOCX. Excel has an extension of let's see, XLSX, and PowerPoint PPTX, and Access ACCDB. So you need to know those extensions, and I believe that that pretty well covers the information in those first 5 sections. Now, I have very quickly just kind of flipped through the textbook and indicated those main areas that you need to study for your exam, Unit 1 exam. Just because maybe I didn't mention something in some of those pages doesn't mean there's not a question there, so you need to study all of that information for your exam. Your exam is, well, to get to your exam, on the front page of your Canvas course, you will see it's due on September the 4th, Unit 1 exam, and you would simply click on that, and it would bring it up so that you could take the exam. You'll notice that on mine it said resume quiz, but on yours it would say take quiz. I'm going to, well, actually I'm going to click on that again just to show you one other thing here. When it comes up, like I say, it will say take quiz. You'll notice it's worth 100 points. It is timed, and you have 60 minutes to take this exam. Actually, I may extend that. I'm not sure. So you might want to take a look at that before you start the exam to see how much time you have for that. There are not multiple attempts like the quizzes you have been taking. And so the way this works is once you click that button, this is take quiz, then the clock starts. And you need to allocate whatever time is allocated for this exam so that you're not distracted and you can have that full time to take the exam. You can take this exam anytime between now and the due date, which is September the 4th. And I have also placed a review sheet that might be helpful to you. So if you go back to the syllabus page, or the first page or front page, I have placed a link here that says exam review sheets. If you click on that, it will take you to a page that has a review sheet for this first exam. Now, as the semester goes on, I'll add additional review sheets. Right now I have this review sheet in two formats, PDF and in a document, a Word document. If I click on that, in just a second, it should bring that file up down here at the bottom. I'll click on that and you can see this review sheet that you may want to either simply view or you can print. And these would be the major items that you would want to study for on your exam. Okay, well, again, this video was to simply give you some information for taking the Unit 1 exam. It is now open. It's due September the 3rd, so you need to make sure that you take the exam. And this will conclude this video. There will be future videos that give you information about assignments coming up and other exams. So continue to monitor your course and monitor your email for further instructions. And if you need assistance, you're always welcome to call me. And my telephone number and email address are on the home page. And so I look forward to assisting you if you need some assistance. Well, that concludes this video.